So this painting, I had already thrown some watered down paint on the background, and then I drew out my owl. Right here, I'm just spraying some stencils, and that sometimes your stencils or your marks don't go through, but sometimes they do. Like this one that I just sprayed, it actually seeped through a little bit, and I was real happy about how that looked. And so I'm just dabbing some paint here, and it's kind of watered down, and then I add a little bit more, and then I put a cellophane paper on top, and you'll see that here in a second. And I'm just spraying some water because I want it to stay wet. And this is just for extra marks. This is a cellophane wrap that's used for the canvases, and I just tore it off and I just pressed it down, and I wanted some wrinkles on there, so all that excess that you see bundled up and stuff, that was just the corners, and it doesn't matter. You can just, flatten it down. And then I tore off a piece right there. Okay, so now I just let it sit until I see that it's dried. And ta-da! There it is, dry. Now I'm pulling off the paper. And I do another layer with a different color. I do some, I think it's called warm gray. Okay, and here I am just drawing it out roughly again. And if you hold your reference right next to your subject, it'll kind of help you with the direction of whatever flow you've got to create a certain shape. And if you don't know how to draw, if you're a beginner and you're just learning, I would recommend that, of course, practice is always the best, but I would recommend using a projector. They have those little mini projectors. I have like an old school projector that I've had for, I think, probably like about 20 years. But anyhow, I try to kind of practice my drawing on the canvas itself. And sometimes you can even pre-draw on a piece of paper, on a scratch paper. And this way it'll give you more confidence on the canvas. Okay, so I put it back on the table, and then I used some Liquitex soft body acrylic paint, added a little bit of water, and spread it out with the catalyst. And that's just to give me different blues and different markings and giving it kind of like an abstract feel. And I really, really am happy with all the marks that I created so far on the background. And you'll see how coming up I end up painting over a lot of the marks because I want to create a focal point, and they turned out really awesome. I was really happy about that. Okay, I'm gonna put it on time lapse. It's, I think, 2.5 times the speed. And you're gonna notice here towards the end that some of these brown marks that I'm making right here on the face didn't show through, but that's okay. Sometimes they end up showing, and you're really grateful that you ended up developing those layers. So, but don't let that stop you, because every layer makes a big difference. And if anything, it guides you, it creates a roadmap for you. I end up using the blow dryer at times because I want to speed it up so I can continue working on it. Sometimes I'll just let it sit there and dry by itself when I'm ready for a break. And I love drips on my paintings. That's why I stood it up. Okay, and so now here I'm developing the focal point. And you don't have to use white. I actually have white with a little bit of that blue that I used down on the bottom of the base, which I believe the color that I use is navy. There's Payne's gray that's real pretty too, and that gives you kind of like a bluish dark color, and that's really popular. It's real eye-grabbing. But okay, so yeah, here I am. I press down on my brush. I'm using, I believe, that is an angular brush, and I just press down. I start the point and then press down and just lift up. And I'm giving him a little bit of droopy eyes. I thought the droopy eyes were just so cute. And now I'm just adding a little bit of color to the feathers. And I'm wanting to keep my feathers down below of his body very abstract. So I just kind of form some feathers, just by dabbing some paint down and just trying to visualize. I am not even looking at the source at this point. There comes a time, or throughout the process, you will catch yourself looking at the source quite a bit, and then you start kind of forming the subject yourself, and you start seeing that it's coming out good, and you have the tendency of pulling away from it, which is good because now it'll help you start developing your style. That's where you kind of start coming in as far as creating your likes and what you don't like. And I do try to leave my white, pure white, till the end for highlights. Sometimes, I will catch myself doing some too bright lights. It will, when I'm developing too bright. But it's okay. You can just go over it if you think that you might have developed it too fast. And this was one of my favorite little spots right here. We don't normally do this little ruffle right here that he has, and I did this by using again the angular brush, and I just lightly put some white with some of that brownish background that I used on the base of this section, and then I just kind of let it fade into the ruffle. And then I came back to it and just put a little brighter white. And I will come back to it again and put the purest white for highlight. And there I go again down, kind of forming out the little feathers. And here I'm using an angular brush again. It's a medium size. Okay, now we have a bigger section, so I go to the medium sized angular brush. And I don't know what size these are, but it's probably like about 3/4 inch. And again, I changed to the filbert brush now, because I'm going to start developing those detailed feathers up on the top. And I do this line right here, kind of representing a feather at an angle. And now look at this. This is what you can create with a filbert brush. If you double load your brush, you can just make sure that you coat your brush on both sides of your brush with the 2 coats. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so get a filbert brush, and it doesn't matter what size. Double load your brush, meaning you're adding 2 colors of paint. You can even try 3 coats, or 3 colors, I mean. And then just dab it on one side and then dab it on the other, so that you can push that paint into your bristle, and just keep doing it. And then once you feel that you've already loaded your brush real good, then you just lay down your brush, and this is where you have to kind of position your hand to where you want to have a free movement. And it's kind of hard for me right now because I'm doing it on the table. And that's it. I try to keep my arm straight and not so much turn my wrist, but there are times when you do have to turn your wrist. Position yourself correctly so that you can be able to turn freely. Okay guys, so I hope that this kind of helped you a little. We will be doing probably an eagle on the next one. So if you'd like to stick around, feel free to subscribe so that you can get notified. And look, I didn't even change brush size. I just went ahead and just dabbed some little marks on there. And they don't have to be uniform because we know that their feathers are kind of ruffled. And there I go with my purest white. And just dabbing little tiny marks. And it looks really, really pretty in person. Unfortunately, you can't see very clear. Here, let me put a picture here. Okay, so here's a picture. And you can see it a little better. Alright guys, I hope this helps you. Just make marks, be expressive, and whatever kind of tools that you want to incorporate into your background, or throughout, including implementing them on your subject. Give yourself that freedom, because it makes your painting so much more expressive. You can create lines, marks, thin lines, thick lines. I'll post a video on how you can use lines, diagonal lines, vertical lines, horizontal lines, and the meanings to be able to express stuff through your art. Okay, so now here is the fun part. I really love using the palette knife. It gives such cool marks. It kind of makes your painting pop. You can use it to maybe like create some white marks, like right here I'm using for the background to make it pop. And you can do several of them, and it's just so fun. So use a palette knife. You can use it at the beginning, you can use it in the middle of your painting, or you can use it towards the end. But just keep in mind though, because your paint now is thicker as you're applying it with a palette knife, so you have to let it dry. Otherwise, just wait for it to wait for yourself to paint with a palette knife towards the end if you want your marks to show and you don't have to be waiting, and then you're done. Okay guys, so here I'm just playing around with the feathers with the filbert brush, and just kind of forming them a little bit better, because I do want his face to be the focal point, and so I'm kind of directing everything to get more detailed towards that focal point. But look how pretty, all the marks and everything. Okay, and there he is. Look at those beautiful feathers. And these are the marks. Let me show you the marks that the cellophane paper did. They were so cool. And those are the vertical lines right there. I mean, horizontal lines right there that it created. And I love those. And there's some more up there to the left. And to the left there's two. I really like those. We'll catch you on the next one.